shipments grind to a halt as Canada's two biggest railways lock out thousands of workers. Good evening and thank you for joining us. After months of increasingly bitter negotiations, CN Rail and Canadian Pacific Kansas City locked out more than 9,000 workers across the country today, including nearly 100 people in Thunder Bay.
But the federal government has swiftly intervened. The Labour Minister announced late this afternoon that he's sending the two sides to binding arbitration. Before that announcement was made, Jaden Billick visited both local picket lines today. He joins us now in studio. Jaden, what was the mood of those locked out employees?
Ryan, workers here in Thunder Bay made it very clear that they would much rather be working than walking the picket lines. The local chair for Teamsters Division 243, John Strapick, says this isn't a great situation for anybody. But unfortunately, this is the route they needed to take in order to gain a better balance with their on and off-duty lives. Picketers standing on the front line say they just want to go back to work. But as their contract ended January 1st, negotiations have stalled between the rail companies and the Teamsters Union, which represents the 6,000 CN workers and 3,000 CPKC employees. These workers on the picket line outside the CP station feel they need to stand up in order to preserve public safety, streamline their scheduling, and bring about changes to regulatory rest in order to create a better work-life balance.
You have to understand that the people that work at the railroad, it's a 24/7 operation. We don't shut down for weather, COVID, we don't shut down. You hear a lot of people say life and the railroad don't mix, and it's true. Like you get a call and 2 hours later you have to be at work. What's been happening with the regulatory rest, some people are getting sent off to Ignace or they're away from home terminal. They're stuck there for 48 hours and the company won't pay them. So it's wrong. You know, you're supposed to have a work-life balance, and it hasn't been happening the last little bit. So that's what we're fighting for.
This historic event of Canada's first full stoppage of freight trains will negatively impact the local and national economy, as the combined companies haul about $1 billion in goods daily. Here in the Northwest, there's close to 100 engineers and conductors impacted in Thunder Bay, around 60 in Schreiber, and just over 100 in Kenora. The workers say they're proud of their jobs nonetheless and just want to improve safety for everyone.
And we strive on being safe, well-rested, and we want to work. We want to move this traffic. We want to see the grains. We want to toot the horn at the kids at the Marina. That's a great feeling to see these kids, you know, give you a little hoot, but we can't do that sitting on the picket line. This is the way we have to start doing this and let people honk for us this time. But yeah, overall, we just want this strike to be over. We want to have a win-win for both.
Jaden Billick, TBT News.
And again, the government has now sent this matter to binding arbitration. We'll have more on that later in the news hour. Thunder Bay Police are on the scene of a serious collision on the city's south side at this time. Emergency services responded to the area of Arthur Street and Marks Street shortly before 2:15 p.m. One person who was operating a scooter was transported to hospital with serious injuries that are considered to be life-threatening. Both the traffic unit and forensic identification units are involved in the ongoing investigation. Residents are asked to avoid the area and are advised that traffic disruptions are to be expected as that investigation takes place.
A delegation from the City of Thunder Bay has returned from Ottawa, where the Association of Municipalities of Ontario held their annual conference.
The four-day AMO gathering is a chance for municipal leaders from across Ontario to meet face-to-face with provincial ministers. Lee Noonan joins us live with more details. Lee, what are some of the highlights from AMO this year?
Well, Ryan, as you know, the headlines have been dominated by the health minister's announcement that they'll be closing 9 safe consumption sites across the province, including here. She made that announcement at AMO, but only after the Thunder Bay delegation's meetings with the province. Those meetings were mostly focused on healthcare, policing, and infrastructure. The Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference was held in Ottawa from the 18th to the 21st. The City of Thunder Bay sent a group of delegates, including Councillor Kristen Oliver, Chair of Intergovernmental Affairs, and Mayor Ken Boshkoff.
We had a most successful and collegial event at AMO. I thought the face-to-face meeting for our advocacy was quite critical.
The delegation had 7 meetings with ministers or ministry representatives. 2 of those were with the Ministry of Health to talk about support for a safe sobering site and about equitable funding for the Thunder Bay Health Unit. Councillor Oliver says she anticipates getting some good news on the health front within the next 4 to 8 weeks.
Often we're seeing our EMS and police, for that matter, in code black, which means that they are tied up at the emergency department waiting to offload. If we have a facility like the safe sobering site, that alleviates that pressure. It alleviates the pressure off the emergency departments as well too, but it provides a place for people to receive the treatment that they need.
The actual population of the city of Thunder Bay is not 108,000 like the highway sign. That it's somewhere between 130 to 140,000 without much argument or resistance. So for us, our short and long range plan is to get the funding for that appropriate population.
The delegates also raised issues of forensic pathology and guns and gangs funding with the Solicitor General, but Oliver and Boschkoff seemed a little less optimistic about seeing results on that front.
Slowly but surely, I think the government must acknowledge in time that we keep on saying this and it still hasn't been addressed, so the only other option is for them to address it.
Infrastructure and economic development were also priorities for the Thunder Bay team, in particular the multi-use turf facility. Oliver says the city will be applying to a newly announced fund for recreational facilities.
Thunder Bay is the size of this community. We are one of the only one likely in Ontario that does not have an indoor turf facility.
Some of the other issues raised by the AMO delegation included the Thunder Bay Expressway and Northwest Arterial Project, economic development in general, and support for lithium processing facilities in particular, and getting kennels for the Thunder Bay Police to support animal welfare. I'm Lee Noonan reporting live. Back to you in the studio.
Okay, thank you very much, Lee. Well, some shocking news out of the town of Rainy River tonight. As of September 30th, doctors say they'll pull their services from the Rainy River Health Centre. The 3 physicians say under the current conditions, they're unable to safely provide 24-hour ER coverage as mandated in their contract with the Ministry of Health. One of the doctors will continue providing some clinic services until November 30th. We hope to have more on this story on tomorrow's NewsHour.
Panum First Nation is finally going to see a bridge built over Barons River, something the community has been working towards for 30 years.
The Ford government announced yesterday that it'll cover more than half of the cost of the estimated $76 million project. Justin Hardy was in the community for that announcement and files this report.
I just think of all the young people, what it will mean to them. They'll get to travel.
Pikangikum members had major cause for celebration following the province's commitment to help build a new bridge over the Barons River and an all-season access road to Pikangikum. The remote community has previously had to rely on ice roads in the winter or in the warmer months a 30-minute boat taxi ride from the gravel road north of Red Lake to the First Nation. This new bridge and permanent road will provide year-round vehicle access to the community, something Chief Shirley Keeper and the chiefs before her have been working on since the 1990s.
Oh, I'm just so overwhelmed. I have so many feelings rushing through my mind, and with the people here and the guests from the provincial and the federal level, and to have guests from other communities, our surrounding neighbors. And I'd just like to first just thank all the community members that came here to share the funding announcement here in Panum First Nation, and we're making history for our children.
The Barons River Bridge and All-Season Road project will increase opportunities for harvesting wood in the Whitefeather Forest. Officials with Frontier Lithium add that this infrastructure will help unlock the potential at their PAC lithium project north of Pikangikum. The project also lays the groundwork for connecting an additional 6 First Nations to Ontario's road network, something Greg Rickford, Minister of Indigenous Affairs, says will be crucial to the communities as they continue to grow.
The important message here today for the people of Ontario is that we are unleashing an incredible opportunity here by working with Pikangikum First Nations and the communities farther north to provide real physical access to services and programs and amenities that many of us take for granted. Health, social, and economic factors factored into to our decision to be a full partner with the community and the federal government.
The Independent First Nations Alliance estimates the cost of the project to be $76.4 million. The federal government dedicated over $20 million for the project in the 2024 budget, according to Indigenous Services Minister Patty Haidu, who was not in attendance at the announcement.
This is a really important project, not just for Pikangikum, which will help actually increase access to that community year-round, but it's also a really important project for all of northwestern Ontario. And increasingly, as we see climate change affecting things like ice roads, we're going to be having more and more conversations with our provincial counterparts about how to bridge that gap, literally, about far north communities that don't have access year-round.
Assuming the federal budget is approved, ground is expected to be broken at the site this spring, with work planned to be completed in 2027. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
The federal government is also investing in another project in Pikangikum. Indigenous Services Minister Patty Haidu has announced that Canada will give the remote First Nation $17 million from the Green and Inclusive Communities Building Program to help build a cultural learning and community centre, which will be a centre for holistic daycare services and an adult education. The facility will be built to net zero carbon design standards with geothermal heating, photoelectric lighting, and solar panels on the roof. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation debt clock made a stop in Thunder Bay this morning. This comes as the Federation continues to push the Ford government to pay down the provincial debt. The debt clock is a digital counter mounted on the side of a moving truck that shows the provincial debt increase in real time. This morning, the truck stopped at Marina Park, showing Ontario's $400 billion debt go up by over $700 every second. Provincial debt interest charges will cost taxpayers $14 billion this year. Taxpayers Federation spokesperson Gage Habrick spoke about the importance of bringing awareness to this issue.
This is the first leg of the Ontario tour. We're starting out in Thunder Bay, but we're going all the way to Ottawa, all the way to Queen's Park to spread the message. And it's important because the debt isn't a problem until it is. Because as the debt keeps increasing, it means more and more money has to go to those interest payments. And when the government is spending billions and billions on interest payments, there's less money left over for services. And if the government continues to want to provide those things, it's going to have to hike your taxes. And that's why it's such a big deal.
The debt clock will make stops all across Ontario. Its next stop is in Sudbury tomorrow morning.
A section of Edward Street is now closed for repairs. The asphalt is being resurfaced between Riverview Drive and Victoria Avenue. The work is expected to take about 2 weeks. The sidewalks aren't impacted and remain accessible to pedestrians.
Ribfest is now underway at a new location. The popular late summer event is set up at Marina Park this time, with organizers hoping to take advantage of amenities the waterfront has to offer. Ribfest is once again a fundraiser for local charity Our Kids Count. The main ribbers are Ribs Royale and Dinosaur Smokehouse, but there are also plenty of local vendors serving up food for those with different tastes. Ribfest was first held in the Gateway Casino parking lot before moving to the CLE grounds and to Lakehead University during the pandemic. Its newest home at Marina Park in the festival area is working out great, say the organizers.
Yeah, we're really excited to be at the waterfront this year. We're just really bringing it, picnic in the park. We've got, the children's activities that are going to be here all weekend and live entertainment on the stage. And everyone's just super excited to be at the waterfront. It's going to be a beautiful sunny weekend, so it's a perfect location. So if you're not able to come down to Ribfest, you can get your 50/50 tickets in support of Our Kids Count online at ourkidscount.ca. And all of the money raised goes into support families in the communities.
Tonight's menu is limited to rib takeout until 9 p.m. Ribfest officially begins tomorrow and runs until Sunday, with vendors serving up saucy treats from 11 in the morning until 8 o'clock each day.
Last night, Atikokan singing star Alex Samson would either face the music or hit yet another high note, as the results were revealed to see who would move on to the semifinals of America's Got Talent.
Alex Samson! What do you want to say to the people at home? Oh my God! We'll see you in the semifinal. One more time for Alex Samson.
Despite some criticism from Judge Simon Cowell, this week Samson was the first of his quarterfinal grouping to be announced as making the semifinals, proving his vocals and throwback style to be a big hit with America's voters. Samson was clearly in shock as fans in the audience and surely the folks back home in Atikokan erupted with cheers. Viewers will now have to wait for the conclusion of 2 more quarterfinal rounds before getting to see Samson perform again during the semifinals in early September.
And he's got all of Northwestern Ontario behind him.
Absolutely. That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah. All right, well, let's turn our attention to the weather now, Fiona. We see there behind you that there was a humidex. Yes, we're talking humidex once again today, but with temperatures in the mid-20s, that's not too bad.
Yeah, just a little bit above normal, but not uncomfortable because as the temperatures rose and the humidex rose, the winds rose in the city of Thunder Bay. Today we had a sunny start, some increasing afternoon clouds, but started out with winds very light from south-southwest, about 4, 5, 6 kilometers per hour for much of the morning. By the afternoon, we were topping out with winds gusting up to 44 km, humidex of 28, and actual temperatures of 25. Across the region at this time, we're fairly consistent. We're at or maybe a degree or so below normal as you head further west, but temperatures pretty consistent, 20, 21, maybe 22. Mostly cloudy in Red Lake, but the humidex has been sitting around 25 throughout this region, even with a fair amount of cloud cover. The relative humidity has been a little bit higher, and that's making the humidex kick in. Further eastward, we've got just a few clouds, but you can see the temperatures suddenly jump up several degrees. Armstrong, Greenstone, both at 26 at this hour, and the humidex is sitting around 29. Little cooler along the north and northeastern shores of Lake Superior. Marathon at 2019 in Wawa. Sault Ste. Marie has had partly cloudy skies for most of the day, a little bit more sunshine at this time. They're at 23 Celsius, and it's much drier heat. The relative humidity is quite low, so the humidex really not a factor in this portion of the region, but the heat is definitely on as you head north of Lake Superior and a little bit to the northeast. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, we have increasing clouds this evening and a 40% chance of showers for the evening and overnight. And yes, there's a risk of a thunderstorm, but temperatures will remain well above normal for this time of year, a low of 15. We'll start out with some gustier winds this evening, and then overnight we'll start out at about 20 kilometers per hour. It'll taper off into the morning, down to about 5 kilometers an hour, but that risk of rain is going to continue for Friday for the morning and into the early afternoon. Here's the good news. With Ribfest starting in earnest for all the on-site activities on Friday, we should actually be clear of most of the rain by the time things really get going. Maybe for the first couple of hours, lunchtime might be a little wet possibly, but the rest of it and into the weekend looking incredible for the event.
Well, that is good news, Fiona, for the, I'm sure, thousands and thousands of people who will be down at the Marina to enjoy that annual event. Thank you very much. All right, well, when we return, we will have more on our top story. That is the rail stoppage across the country. As we mentioned, Canada's Labour Minister has stepped in, sending the matter to binding arbitration. That's because this was set to cost the Canadian economy billions of dollars a day. We'll have more details right after the break.
At 12:01 this morning, CPKC locked out conductors, train engineers, rail yard workers, stopping trains in their tracks.